Yes, good afternoon. This week I saw this fascinating show on genomics. And in this show, they said that we as humans are 99.9% absolutely identical, generically. And my question to you is, if we're born 99.9% identical, and we come out of the womb, and I've never seen a baby that wasn't all love. I mean, they're all love. How do we get so different? How do we get this separateness? Where does all this come from?
Well, the most important thing for you to realize is that while you are flesh, blood, and bone, and that is the genetics that they are talking about,
right,
you are much more energy or spirit than you are any of that.
That's true. I understand.
So you come forth with a variety of intentions, and it is that difference in intentions that makes for the balance.
Why do we lose the love? Why does this love go away?
We can answer that easily for you, and we think you will hear it easily.
Okay.
Everyone wants to feel good. It is built into you. Mm-hmm. And when you are looking into the environment around you and you see things that cause you to feel good, you say, we want more of those. I would support that. I would vote for that. I would put my money behind that. Mm-hmm. But when you see things that when you look at them make you feel bad, you say, we don't want any of that. And then you begin to, without even recognizing that you're doing it, conclude that if that thing that feels bad would be more like that thing that feels good, then I could feel better more of the time. And then you begin to believe that things that are outside your control need to line up for you so that you can feel good. And now you are powerless because you don't understand the different intent and you can't make them vibrate the way you need them to. And then you begin developing this, what we would call very conditional love. I feel good, I feel love, I feel connection, as long as these conditions line up the way I need them to. But since they don't, now I need to push against the things that are wrong. In other words, if I could just get rid of this, then the world would be better. If I didn't have that in my world, then I would feel so much better. And so as you push against that, what do? You activate it and hold it in your vibration.
I see.
So it is the misunderstanding about the difference between attraction and assertion. This is a universe based on attraction. Is the difference between understanding inclusion, which everything in this universe is, and exclusion, which does not exist anywhere. Exclusion is like trying to deactivate something. Mm-hmm. So what happens is people, through the process of observation, get disconnected. Now, we want to carry this a little further because this is the answer that we've been waiting to give for a long, long time. You're hung up in step one.
Okay.
And step one's an important step.
Uh-huh.
In other words, step one is important to this process, but step three is important to this process. And when humans get hung up in step one, in other words, I know what I don't want, I know what I do want, how are we going to get rid of it? Let's face the facts. When did this start? How far back into my past do I have to go? Why do I feel this way? Why don't I feel better? Well, it happened when I was 2. Well, it was something that my mother did. Well, if my mother had been differently, if the government would do something differently, I could feel better. You get a sense of it? In other words, it's all about not trusting or not knowing who you really are because you got sideways of that feeling. And all of that is about not being willing to feel your own emotion and trust that what your emotion is telling you is worth listening to. And that happened because, this is fun, and that happened because when you were little, some well-meaning person warned you about some danger when there was no danger. So you heard it with your ears, and you believed them because they were big, but your guidance system wasn't giving you any of it, and you trusted them instead of your own guidance. You got separated from your own feeling. You lost the sensation of understanding what your guidance system was telling you in order to relate it to what they were telling you in the moment. Mm-hmm. It's like a well-meaning parent. Jerry and Esther saw it in a campground one day. These parents, well-meaning, really nice people, were tired of chasing their little kids around. And so Esther overheard them telling them about the monsters that lived in the bushes. Yeah. Because the kids wanted to go play in the bushes and the parents didn't want to go with them. So they said, there's stuff in those bushes that you don't want to deal with. Like what? Well, they're big and they're mean. There's a boogeyman in the bushes. And that little child was so obedient. That child never got more than 20 feet from the side of his parent the whole rest of their camping trip. In other words, it was like a dog on a chain. The child was afraid to venture out. And the thing that is so shocking about that is that this child had no way of measuring his own resources because there was no danger in the bushes.
Right.
So he was taking somebody else's word for danger in the bushes, and then parents wonder why their children don't understand their own guidance system, you see. Yeah. So it's all about that. But the good news is you get crossways from allowing in your quest to determine and decide. And the determining and the deciding is a very important part. Mm-hmm. And you never thought it was a risk, and it isn't, because you always knew that who you really are would prevail, and does. And so you never felt like you were too far out on the leading edge. You always knew that resources would come along. When you're little, even though you might get out of kilter, there's always a teacher or a loved one. There's always someone who gives you those clues of guidance. In other words, even the most exaggerated diversion from your path is not as far off of your path as any of you believe. But you take your life so seriously. You worry so much about what others think. You try so hard to be this picture of perfection instead of just understanding that you are here to live joy. And that brings us to the biggest point that you are reaching for. When you lose sight of the fact that joy is your quest,
right,
then you get out of balance. You came with this perfect triad of intentions of freedom and growth and joy. And the freedom is a basic. It is a standard. You are so free you can choose bondage. Freedom is the natural basis of your experience. When you choose joy as your goal or your dominant intention, what you're saying is, I will always try to line up my thoughts, words, and actions with something that feels good, because you can't have joy otherwise. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, expansion or growth is the natural result. But then we have to say to you, expansion or growth is the natural result no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it that way, if you can't get it wrong and you never get it done, then what's this big hang-up? Why is the struggle so severe? Mm-hmm. When you think about how perfect you are, and how worthy you are, and how listened to you are, and how particular you are, how specifically individual you are, and how blessed you are, and how worthy you are, and how the universe is responding to you so powerfully, there's just that one little missing piece that we talk about day after day after day after day, of just relaxing into the trust and knowing and allowing and believing that you are in the perfect place. So we say, so let's do a rampage of appreciation. And people will say, for what? So that I can get what I want? And we say, no, just so you can be joyful in the moment. And they say, yes, but for what? We say, let's do a virtual reality. And they say, why? And we say, so that you can feel good while you do it. And they say, yeah, we get that. So we can feel good. But then what? Then what? In other words, what else will I get from it? And that's the rub right there. If you could just get it, that this powerful now is the junction where you meet you, where the source that is you meets the physical perspective ego. We sort of like that is you. And as these two parts of you converge, and you are aware of the way you feel so that you are working in your consciousness to allow the harmonious convergence. Mm-hmm. Pretty good, eh? Then every moment of your experience is the powerful now that is really you.
Yeah.
Now. It's all right now. It's all right now. So how often do you find yourself now struggling or working a little hard in order to affect something for later? Or putting off something that you'd really like to do? Or worrying?
Yeah.
And when you realize that it's all now, life is now, life is now, life is now. It's now, it's now, it's now, it's now, right. It's now. Life is now. I'm using it now. It's sort of like you have this quantity of oxygen that you are assigned. Of course, that's not true. But in order to get more, you have to breathe what you've got. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, what if there isn't more? I'm going to do all mine today. Or Or what if there's not enough? I'll hold my breath so I don't use it up too much. And we say, it's all now, and it's all happening now. Everything is about now. But in your now, you can be observing, you can be remembering past, you can be contemplating future, you can be facing reality, you can be facing virtual reality, you can be pretending, you can be fantasizing, you can be factualizing, you can focus anywhere you want, but you're doing it now.
Right.
And we think that the reason that so many have lost sight of their joy is because they're saving up for something later that they will never experience unless they practice it now. Because your vibrational proclivities are now. In other words, you know how you're mostly going to vibrate tomorrow? Pretty much like you did today. So if today you're reaching for more and more better feeling thoughts, then tomorrow it's likely that you'll find more and more better feeling thoughts.
Right.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes. Yes. Something more?
That's it. Thank you.
But if you are trying to please someone who's not connected to Source, you get more and more and more and more and more out of balance. And so, rather than trying to determine whether they are or whether they aren't or whether they are or whether they aren't, because it comes and goes with everyone, just pay attention to the way you feel, and then your compass is steady. And you are always on a joyful path. On a joyous path to what? On a joyous path to more joyous path. But where does it lead? To more joyous path. But what's at the end of this path? More joyous path. But what am I doing it for? Joy. But where will it end? It won't. I never get it done? That's pretty much it. You never get it done. We never get it done. But when you think about it, have you ever been on a joyous path, like a vacation, or eating an ice cream cone, when you wouldn't have minded if it didn't end? Where you wouldn't have minded if it just went on and on? You were having such a good time. The idea of it continuing to expand before you felt so good. Well, that's the way this life experience felt to you from your non-physical perspective. And it's the way we want you to remember again. Jerry and Esther were leaving a hotel in San Diego the other day. And the bellman who was helping them with their luggage stood with Esther on the curb while Jerry went to get the car. And he said, I met a lot of happy people this weekend who were at your seminar. What was it about? And Esther said, oh, it's about letting the well-being that is natural in. He said, what? Esther said, well, it's about understanding that we are supposed to feel good and just not doing that thing that keeps us from feeling good. And if we don't do that, then we feel good. And he said, what? And then a family is coming out of the hotel, and a little girl who could not have been more than 3 years old, maybe not even that, tiny little thing, is pushing on the big, heavy glass door. And Esther went to help her and then realized that the little girl was pushing so hard that if Esther opened the door, she would probably fall right down. So Esther stood back and watched her because her parents were allowing it. And the little girl pushed the door with all of her might into the open position and then held it while her older brother walked out, and her father and her mother. And she is exclaiming to all of them, I did this all by myself. I did this all by myself. And then a parade of strangers are coming out of the hotel, one after the other. The little girl is holding the door, and she is telling each of them, I did this all by myself. Her beauty and her purity and her joy brought one man nearly to tears. He could hardly believe that this little bit of a thing that did not come to his knee was holding the door for him. And then she bounced down the sidewalk with her family, shouting all the way to the parking garage, I did that all by myself. And Esther said to her friend, we are all born like that. We're born sure of ourselves. We're born eager. We're born full of life. We're born happy. We're born with no self-consciousness. We're born knowing how wonderful we are and wanting to express it in endless ways. And then as time goes by, we pick up stuff along our trail that sort of mutes that. And our seminars are about uncovering that until we can get back to that. That's what this game of virtual reality will do for you.